What's up, everyone? Happy game week. Welcome to the Wildcast. I'm Justin Spears here with my guy, Michael Lev. We got Jordan Hamm from Sports 360 AZ joining us later in the podcast. We'll be doing our Big 12 picks for Big 12 Bonanza. And then we'll cap things off with our prediction for Arizona versus Houston. The Wildcats looking to bounce back from their really heartbreaking double overtime loss to BYU. The game that literally slipped through their fingers, and it's a tough one. But Arizona at the halfway point of this season, they are 4-2. They have lots to be optimistic about. But looking ahead, the only team with the losing record on their schedule, the Colorado Buffaloes. So Arizona's 4-2, but it's going to be a tough stretch ahead for Arizona. Lev, we're going to be doing our midseason awards, but overall, halfway point, how do you feel about this Arizona Wildcats team?
Yeah, definitely trending in the right direction. It feels like. I know everyone was disappointed, frustrated about how things unfolded Saturday night. They put themselves in a position to win against BYU, and then they squandered that lead in the fourth quarter. And a lot of little things happened along the way that we've talked about aplenty, like the decision at the end of regulation and whether to go for it or not on fourth down and all of that stuff. But that's sort of in the past. They're 4-2. I think most people probably thought they'd be 3-3 at this point. And this upcoming game is huge, in my opinion, because you do not want to go into the bye week on a 2-game losing streak, right?
No.
And people like us are going to bring up the fact that they were 4-1 to start the 2019 season and then ended up losing the rest of their games, right? And going on this horrific losing school record 20-game losing streak, right? So it's a big difference to me if you're sitting there at 5-2 going into the bye versus 4-3.
Yeah.
You're 5-2, you're 1 game away, 1 win away from going to a bowl game for the first time since 2023 and the second time since 2017.
Yeah.
So I think this is
and coming off the bye, you're playing against a team that's got the losing record, the only one that's left on the schedule. So realistically, Arizona could really, rattle off 2 straight wins, get to bowl eligibility, and then everyone can kind of take a big sigh of relief, and then they can see, okay, how good of a bowl game can we get to?
Yeah, Colorado is definitely trending in the right direction, but they have to play at Utah next week while Arizona is resting. So I think that's an advantage for the Wildcats. I know you're going to write about this week. We've talked about it a bunch. Like, they have not been good on the road since that Utah game last year. In fact, they've been bad, right? Like, none of those games have even been close. No. So I want to see like the competitive spirit show up in a big way on Saturday. Like, it's a 9 a.m. game, our time, 11 a.m. local.
Burritos
it's not like you don't get super, like, you're not getting super duper excited, pumped up about going to Houston, right? Whereas you might feel differently if it were traditional big two, like if you're going to BYU or going to Utah or ASU or something, right? So they have to really be mentally sharp and focused for this game, right? I don't want to see what would disappoint me the most would be if Arizona just doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Right. Because then the same old Arizona talk, I think, would be justified. I do not think it was justified at all for the way they played this last game. In fact, I think they kind of blew up that narrative by the way that they rallied in that game, which was, the type of game that they would have gotten blown out in last year.
Last year, they let things snowball. This year, they figure out ways to redline accountability, and then they come back with the red line effort and execution. And it's a resilient group. It really is. And that's why, whenever this Arizona team, they have shown us against a top 20 opponent, even when they're down by 2 scores, like, they're not going down without a fight. So this Arizona team,
they also
some good stuff, but they also got to do it on the road too, and they didn't really do that against Iowa State.
They have veteran leaders on both sides of the ball, right? Noah Fifita is a redshirt junior. Dalton Johnson and Traden Stukes are 6th-year players, right? Both.
Yeah.
Genesis Smith, he's in his third year, second year as a starter.
Well,
Riley
no,
Wilson,
Dalton's a fifth year guy. Sorry. Stooks is sixth
isn't?
year.
I
Yeah.
thought Dalton
21.
played in 2020.
No, 21. Because he was a
50,
part of
okay.
that 21 class
Okay.
that even when Sumlin got fired, he signed with them.
Yeah, good call. But still, fifth
Still,
year,
like,
sixth year,
fifth year
those
guy.
guys have been there and done that. Like, this is not going to be like a new experience for most of those guys. And even most of the transfers who have played for them are guys who had a ton of previous college experience. And they have played a road game, a whiteout night game at Iowa State already. Yeah. So none of the outside noise, as they call it, the distractions, none of that should really impact them. They just need to play well, take care of the ball.
Yeah.
Huge thing that the coaches have talked about quite a bit. I know they view Arizona as having had 4 turnovers at Iowa State, even though technically they only had 2, I think. They count fourth down failures as turnovers as well. So take care of the ball, pack your defense. Over under in that game, Justin, it's only 45.5. So there's like 2 of the top defenses in the league. I think people are anticipating, or Vegas is anticipating, a low scoring knockout, drag out type of game. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if it was like 20-17 or something of that nature.
All right, well, we'll take a look at that game to wrap up this podcast. I'll be going out to Houston. First time that Arizona's gone out to Houston since Lev, you were there. And real quick, before we get to midseason awards, funny story about that game, Lev. Khalil Tate was the hot topic in college football. Hey, Kevin Sumlin, him and Khalil Tate, they might be a match made in heaven. They go back to Houston where Kevin Sumlin coached. And then what happened?
Yeah, I've told this story before, but it's worth retelling. So there was a Clemson-Texas A&M game that night. So a lot of the national writers were like, hey, we can double dip. We can go to the Arizona-Houston game, and then we can go to the Clemson-Texas A&M game. A lot of NFL scouts had kind of the same itinerary, and it was such a blowout in Houston's favor that they all left at halftime. They just all took off. I was kind of like the only person left in the press box, it felt like. So hopefully it won't go like that again. I would like to think that this is a better coached team, a better prepared team, and that they'll show up for this very important game back in Houston.
But Lev, now that we're at the halfway point,
yeah,
I figured, you know what? Let's do some midseason awards. I wrote about this, and you brought it up that we should talk about this on the podcast. And I'm like, yes, I totally agree. So let's talk about this. So we've got awards for offensive MVP, defensive MVP, best transfer, best freshman, and most improved player. Starting off with the offensive MVP, I feel like this is kind of a no-brainer. Quarterback Noah Fafita, the straw that stirs the drink, a guy that's been Pac-12, or it's not. Oh my gosh, I said the X's name.
It happened.
It happened. Did you do it last week on accident?
I kind of like caught myself, but yeah, it happened. It does happen though.
Well,
it definitely happens sometimes.
I've been got. So
I got to tell you, like, there are still times where I will almost type out my work email address as mlev@ocregister. Like, it still happens. I haven't been at the register in 10 years, and that still happens sometimes. So it takes a lot to just get that out of your system, you know?
Big 12 offensive player of the week after a 5-touchdown performance against Oklahoma State. Continues to ascend the all-time passing yards leaders at Arizona. You know, he's fourth in passing yards behind Foles, Tuitama, Tom Tunnicliffe, and then third in passing touchdowns behind Nick Foles and Willie Tuitama. So, you know, when it's all said and done, Noah Fafita is going to go down as one of the greatest passers in Arizona football history. And you know what? He's probably going to come back next year, start for the Wildcats, and finish things off as a senior and be teammates with his younger brother, Dash, who's a part of that 2026 class. But, you know, Lev, I looked at, you know, some of the other finalists. You know, I put, you know, running back Ismail Mahdi in that conversation. He's another guy that got some Big 12 weekly awards love earlier in the season. Kaina DeCambra, I think, stepping in as that center. You know, he hasn't had a bad snap, knock on wood. And I think he's been a pretty solid player in tandem with Noah Fafita in that quarterback center relationship. The wide receivers are great. Like, I think each one of them have had their moment over the course of the season. But if we're talking about just kind of the more consistent people in the offense, I put Noah Fafita at the top of that list, and then those other guys that I just mentioned.
Yeah, I just so everybody knows, we did not discuss this before the pod.
This is
So
blind.
this would be a surprise, like who we're picking. I also picked Noah Fafita. I just didn't see another option. The thing with the running backs and the wide receivers, it's like it's a different guy every week.
Yeah.
There hasn't been like one guy who's been the consistent bell cow back or the consistent go-to receiver. So Noah was my choice as well. He's improved in most statistical categories this season. And as you mentioned, he's on his way to really kind of shattering the record books when it comes to Arizona passing statistics. My runner-up was Kayana DeCambra, the center. Before, people need to remember he never played center before. They threw him in there in the spring because they needed somebody, and he has done a really good job. Very steady. Only allowed 2 quarterback pressures and 1 sack all season, according to Pro Football Focus. I think when we sit down at the end of the season, Justin, like someone who might sneak into the conversation is Chris Hudson. Chris Hudson's been a little bit banged up, had his best game as a Wildcat. I think he's going to, like, that connection between Noah Fafita and that wide receiver wearing number 4 on his jersey is going to continue to blossom. So that's somebody to keep an eye on, I think, moving forward, but just hasn't done enough to this point to get into that top 2.
All right. How about defensive MVP? I feel like this is where you and I are going to be different, Michael Lev.
Maybe.
Because I feel like we both have safeties, but I'm picking Dalton Johnson.
Okay.
As the defense MVP. Now, listen, as far as like ceiling, NFL promise, all of that, Genesis Smith is without a doubt like Arizona's most promising prospect, right? But, I think Dalton Johnson, I mean, he's just been a solid player, a really a guy that can make tackles out in open space. And we saw him make his first interception since the 2023 Territorial Cup. Also really good at, the forcing fumbles and stuff like that. So he's just an all-around good player, improving as a ball hawk, and he leads Arizona in tackles. And last year in that linebacker safety role, he was a guy that led the Wildcats in tackles. So I would say so far, in my opinion, Dalton Johnson has been the most valuable defensive player for the Wildcats. And then if you think about it, that BYU game had a profound impact on that because he made that tackle on that fake punt, which got Arizona the ball in BYU territory. And then he also had a pick in that game as well. So maybe it's recency bias, but in my opinion, Dalton Johnson has been the MVP through the first 6 games.
I picked Genesis Smith.
And I have no problems with
but
that.
I had Dalton number 2. And I think it's very close. If you're going to, Genesis, man, he could have been the hero easily of that BYU game if they recover that fumble, because he's the one who knocked it out from Bear Bachmeier.
Yeah.
They're, 1 fumble recovery away from being 5-1 and probably being ranked. I was very close. I would say, the Dalton argument would be that he's a better tackler than Genesis. Yeah. If you're going to poke a hole in Genesis's game right now, he's inconsistent as a tackler, and there've been a couple busts. The thing when you play his position, you're that last line of defense, and they get by you for a big play. Like, it's kind of like you kind of have to wear that, Yeah. You don't necessarily notice as much for the guys who are up front when someone's going 75 yards, but when you're the last guy back there, it kind of pops out sometimes. But I still went with Genesis. He's just such a big play weapon for them. And I got to say, you learned something new, Justin, about this ceaselessly fascinating game of football every day. As Danny Gonzalez noted during his press availability on Tuesday, I had said that Tay Brown had the most tackles against BYU, and then the next 3 guys were defensive backs. And I said, that's usually not good for a defense. And he said, the way we play, our safeties are essentially like linebackers.
Yeah.
Like, they funnel the run game to the safeties who come up. That's kind of the position that Brian Urlacher played for New Mexico way back in the day. It's kind of a safety, but kind of also a linebacker. Brian Urlacher, who was Danny Gonzalez's roommate, we learned.
That's awesome.
No idea. I had no idea about this. But anyway, so I picked Genesis. I had Dalton 2. And my number 3 choice, or my choice for like maybe when we revisit the season-ending awards, Riley Wilson. Keep an eye on Riley Wilson. He has not played that much, but he has as much production as just about anybody.
Yeah.
Hasn't missed a tackle all season. So he is coming on like gangbusters. And it wouldn't be surprising to me if at the end of the year, we're like, Riley Wilson's got a case for MVP of the Arizona defense.
Yeah. And Danny Gonzalez said at the start of the year, like Riley Wilson's going to be a household name. I didn't put him on the finalist list just because of the small sample size. You know, I like what I saw out of Genesis Smith, Traden Stukes, Max Harris, Tay Brown, Aiden Garnes, but there's no doubt Riley Wilson's probably the guy that's really ascending right now for Arizona. All right, let's go to best transfer, Lev. This one, I picked Max Harris, linebacker, transfer from Texas State. He's got the 4th most tackles this season for Arizona, and he is the green dot guy for the Wildcats. So he's getting the communication from Danny Gonzalez, and he's relaying it to the defense. For a new guy to come in and take on that role, I think is really impressive. Really good communicator, and he also has the 2nd most quarterback hits on the team with 4, and he's got a forced fumble as well. He's been really a rock solid player at linebacker alongside Tay Brown this season for Arizona. So I decided to give Max Harris the nod as the best transfer, but right behind him, I've got guys like Ismail Mahdi, Aiden Garnes, Javion Cole, Riley Wilson, and also Deshaun McKnight.
Yeah, I went with somebody that we mentioned earlier, which is Kayana DeCambra, so yet another transfer who was in that kind of conversation. There are many, many candidates for this. I mean, if you look at Arizona's starting lineup, like a lot of players are transfers, and a lot of them have been really productive. Sean McKnight, Malachi Bailey, Riley Wilson, Max Harris, Aiden Garnes, Javion Cole, most of their offensive line, right? 3/5 of their starting offensive line, their entire running back room, most of their receiving core.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you break it down that way. Again, I had Max Harris 2nd. He's been very steady, good playmaker. Again, a little inconsistency with tackling. He's got among the most missed tackles on the team, so that's an area where he needs to improve. And, you know, you could throw Riley Wilson and Chris Hudson in that conversation for people we're going to be talking about at the end of the year if those guys stay healthy and remain as productive as they've been in their recent outings.
All right, now moving on to best freshman. Normally, freshmen aren't asked to do too much.
This is kind of the opposite. This is the opposite of transfers.
Yes.
Right? Like there were so many candidates for transfers, and I'm like, who am I going to pick for this?
For freshmen,
yeah. You're right.
So
who you got?
I got Gio Richardson. Richardson, you know, he had several chances at making some flashy catches earlier in the season, and then just timing just wasn't quite there. But man, he had a really impressive 40-yard catch against Oklahoma State. So he's shown a lot of good stuff. And, you know, I'm really excited about him because, you know, he's getting these reps right now. And he's also, you know, kind of under the wing of guys like Luke Weissong and Chris Hudson. And, you know, some of these older guys, Javen Watley, they're only going to be here for this year. And then they're all going to leave next year. And then Gio Richardson is going to slide right into one of those starting spots. And same with Isaiah Mizell. But, you know, Gio Richardson looks like a really good do everything receiver, a guy that's really fast, flashy, and can also take the top off the defense and, you know, jump up and make a big time grab. So he's a really good receiver. And, you know, it's amazing when we talk to him, I think during preseason training camp, it is so uncanny how much he is like Bobby Wade, like just the cadence and how they talk and how they break down the game and their stature, like how they look. It's almost like they're blood related. And, you know, the fact that Bobby Wade gets to coach him for a couple more years, I think is going to be a really cool deal. And you're going to see Gio Richardson really start to take off. And same with Isaiah Mizell. And I put Isaiah Mizell in that conversation. But one freshman that is a name that people should keep an eye on due to the circumstances with injuries is defensive lineman Mays Pese, who, has been kind of, one of the backup guys. But now with Trey Smith going down with an injury, this is a guy that's probably going to get a lot of snaps. I think, last time I checked, he has played over 100 defensive snaps this season, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, he's getting some love in there. So now with Trey Smith out, expect Mays Pese to make some noise. So look out for those names.
Mays Pese was my pick.
Oh,
for
nice.
the freshman of the year at the midpoint of the season. He was their second highest graded defensive player against BYU. I played only 16 snaps, but as you mentioned, he's played over 100, and they're going to use him.
Yeah.
They need him. Usually don't see, I would say, offensive or defensive linemen who are true freshmen having a huge impact at Arizona, because for the most part, they're signing 3-star developmental type prospects, but he has broken through. And he's going to be a significant and important player for them at a position where they lost Trey Smith, who is one of their best defensive players. Didn't really have the numbers this year. I don't think he was healthy really after getting hurt in the second game of the season. Danny Gonzalez explained how important he is because of his strength, his ability to hold the point of attack, take on blockers, etc. But I went with Mays Pese. Gio Richardson was my number 2 choice. And then my guy to keep an eye on was Myron Robinson, the linebacker who was injured at the start of the season. He's only played a little bit. He's kind of, he's on special teams now, but man, they really like him. Super explosive. The problem is, where do you play him? It would take an injury in all likelihood to Tay Brown or Max Harris for Myron to get a lot of playing time, but it could be a splash play here or a splash play there, and someone to really feel good about if you're an Arizona fan heading into next season, when there will be an opening in that linebacking core.
He's like the Gio Richardson of the linebackers. It's like this year, when you get your chance, make the most of it. But next year, bro, stay tight and you'll be getting a lot of looks next year. All right. Lastly, before we bring on Jordan Hamm, how about most improved player? Lev, I went, and the catch here is that you got to be a part of last year's team. So you can't, there are guys that have improved a lot. Guys like Tristan Bounds, I think, has improved a lot. Malachi Bailey has made a lot of improvement. Cameron Barmore at tight end. But they got to be a part of the 2024 team. And I'm going to go with Chase Kennedy at linebacker, just because, was a defensive end, was a very light defensive end, but they wanted to use his athleticism and his frame and use it in this edge rushing linebacker type of role in Danny Gonzalez's defense. And I think him and Riley Wilson in that role, it's been a really big impact for Arizona's defense. But Chase Kennedy, I think now that he's at that linebacker spot, he's probably impacting Arizona's defense more so than he did last year. So I put Kennedy in that conversation, but guys behind him, I got to give a ton of credit to Gavin Hunter for stepping in for Traden Stukes. He's going to be a guy, once Stukes is done this year, he's going to be one of Arizona's top DBs next season. So the job that he did in place of Stukes, I think, has to get recognized. And then I think Dominic Lalesio as well has definitely improved over the course of the year or so. So, and then, Chuba Mai, I'm sure you could probably put in that conversation. Lev, is that your guy for the most improved player?
The 3 guys you mentioned are the 3 guys that I have written down.
Oh, okay.
I had Chase Kennedy, number 1, leads the team in quarterback pressures, has become a more well-rounded player, put on weight, yet also is able to drop and play, in space as a linebacker. Very impactful when he's been out there. Chuba Mai was my second choice. Now, remember, he was injured last year. He was out of shape. He's gotten himself into the point where he can play an entire game now. Yeah. And he's also changed positions from defensive line to offensive line. He's really made a lot of progress. He did get a little bit banged up in this last game, was able to come back in. We'll see if he pops up on the availability report for Houston game, but he was my second choice. And then my guy to keep an eye on was Gavin Hunter, who played extremely well before Traden Stukes came back. Gavin is recovering from a sprained ankle. Probably will play in some capacity against Houston. The issue with him is there's kind of nowhere to put him unless they come up with a dime defense. right? Because you're not going to take Traden Stukes off the field. Traden Stukes, I believe, is Arizona's highest graded defensive player on PFF and probably their best NFL prospect for the 2026 draft. So it's hard to get that guy off the field no matter how good Gavin Hunter's looked. But credit to him, he's matured a lot. The coaches have talked about this, and he's really improved quite a bit as a player.
And you could slide into that nickelback spot for next season. And
yeah, that's another one. If you just bide your time, your time will come.
The Arizona's got to be feeling pretty good about some of the second guys that they have that are going to be coming back. All right. So we're going to have a full breakdown of the Arizona-Houston game coming up here in just a few moments. But let's bring on our favorite guest, Jordan Hamm from Sports 360 AZ. What's going on, Jordy? How you doing, man?
How we doing, fellas? Just chugging along through the middle of football season. Gotta love it.
Yes, sir. All right, Lev.
Should we take a look at the standings? Should we take a look at how we did last week? And I'm not sure Jordan and I really want to talk. We don't want to linger on this topic because things did not go great for us. Whereas our guy Justin somehow survived this disastrous week. Justin was 4-3 against the spread, folks. Somehow, some way.
I don't know.
He's in first place.
I don't know.
It's the least amount of research leads to the best results. Corollary.
He just knows ball. That's what it is.
He does. He does. It's just instinct.
Ball knower, man.
So 29-24 in the season. Justin was also 4-3 straight up. So he's in first place there as well now at 39-14. Jordy and I were both 2-5 against the spread. Now, bear in mind, this includes the ASU Utah game. We probably should have huddled about this and done some sort of last minute whiteout course correction and taken into account the Sam Levitt injury situation. But we made our picks when we made our picks. So we all lost that one taking ASU. I think if we had to do it over again, we probably all would have taken Utah minus 9.5, right? But what's done is done.
The public is our bookie, Lev. When we do a podcast and it's released to the public, like that's it.
Yeah, that's it. True.
The bookie's not going to give us the money back.
You can always fade us too. I think fading me is always a good idea. I was somehow 6-1 straight up and 2-5 against the spread. I don't even know how that's like mathematically possible. Jordy was 4-3 straight up. So for the season, we are both 38-15, one game behind Justin. Jordy, you're 26-27 now against the spread. 3 games back. I am 25-28, bringing up the rear. Do you have any comment on any of that, Jordan, or do you just want to move on to this week?
Yeah, I mean, I know there was a lot of hoopla about my Kansas pick, and when I was at the ASU Utah game, it was 21-17, and then I had to go down to the field. Did Kansas, put up a good fight in the second half? Is that what? Oh no, Texas Tech outscored them 21-0 in the unanswered. So took a swing and missed. So I don't know how much longer I can keep that money line nickname after this effort this past week.
So you can't hit a home run unless you get into the batter's box and take a swing, right? So we're not here to just take walks, right? We're here to take swings and try to hit the ball over the fence. So I applaud you for that.
If we could describe the first half of the season, it would be, to compare it to a baseball player, it'd be Mark Reynolds. It's been I'm striking out or I'm hitting a 450-foot bomb, and there's no in between.
Chicks dig the long ball, right? Isn't that what they say? Yeah. Okay. Shall we get to this week's slate, guys?
Let's do it.
There's only 6 games this week. We got 4 teams on bye. If my math is correct. Yeah, that's right. So we'll skip Arizona-Houston for now, which is, of course, in the 9 a.m. window. Also in the 9 a.m. window, we've got Baylor at TCU. This game is on ESPN2. I mentioned earlier to Justin that the over-under in the Arizona game was 45.5. This game, it's 65.5.
Yeah.
Baylor and TCU are both, among the league leaders in many offensive categories. They're both 4-2. TCU ended up losing at Kansas State last week, but they did outgain the Manhattan Wildcats by 105 yards. I anticipate a shootout here. I'd be very surprised if this is not like a classic Big 12 type of game. I'm going to go with Baylor to win the game. They're getting 3.5 points at Fort Worth. And the reason is, if you look at last year, it was after a bye in October that the Bears took off, and they went on their 6-game winning streak to end the regular season. I can definitely see history repeating itself. I can see Baylor getting hot. This is a team that a lot of people thought highly of coming into the season. Maybe the bye week gives you a chance to reset and figure some things out. So I'm going to take the underdog Baylor Bears plus 3.5 on the road to win at TCU.
I'm going with the Horned Frogs to win this game by a touchdown. I think this is going to be like a classic Big 12 shootout game where it's going to be 47-40, or first one to 50 wins. So I think both quarterbacks are great. I mean, Josh Huber, Sawyer Robertson, like I said, a classic Big 12 battle. You got two great Big 12 quarterbacks going toe to toe. But I do think that TCU avenges their loss to Baylor last year, which is a really heartbreaking loss. I believe they lost by a point, and then TCU ended up winning three straight to end the regular season, and then they won their bowl game. So they got some good vibes going into this season ever since that loss to Baylor last year, and I think they avenged their loss, and they beat Baylor by a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm going TCU also. I think they bounced back after a tough game against Kansas State. They turned the ball over a couple times. They try to get that right. And honestly, like the Baylor defense, they have given up a lot of yards and a lot of points. And when you have so many different options for Josh Hoover, the key for him is when he's upright, when he has time, he can deliver to one of those playmakers. So if they can do that against a Baylor defense that hasn't been spectacular this year, I think TCU takes care of business by more than 3.5.
All right, Justin and Jordan both taking the home Horned Frogs. I've got the Bears. Moving on to a 10 a.m. game. This is the TNT game. This is West Virginia at UCF. TNT is really getting all the good ones here thus far this season. These teams are 0-6 combined in the Big 12. UCF actually played really well last week at Cincinnati. That game was closer than many people thought. It was 20-11. They outgained Cincinnati 413 to 306. They had more first downs. They had twice as much time of possession. If you look at a lot of the various statistics, UCF is kind of an outlier in that, like, their stats say their record should be one thing, and their record doesn't really reflect how decently they've played. They're always a tough out at home. Both teams have kind of quarterback questions. It looks like Rich Rod is going to commit to a couple of young guys. Khalil Wilkins and Scotty Fox, I think, are both going to play. He has a quarterback named Khalil who wears number 14. We all know how much magic he was able to create with a guy who had those parameters back in the day. I watched a good bit of that game against BYU. Khalil Wilkins is not nearly as fast or explosive as Khalil Tate, but he does seem like he can run the offense the way Rich Rod wants to. Cam Fancher started for UCF last week. He actually rushed for over 100 yards in that game. It seems like Taven Jackson might be back, so we're not really sure what's going to happen there. The spread is 7.5. This game is at UCF. It's just too many points for me to give for teams that are kind of in that bottom tier of the Big 12. So I'm going to take UCF to win. I think they're definitely due to win. But I'm going to take West Virginia to keep it close. They kind of kept it close against BYU. They're coming off a bye. Rich Rod is a good coach. So I'll take the 7.5 points. UCF wins. West Virginia covers.
Yeah, Rich Rodriguez, when it comes to X's and O's, is top notch. And I think in this game, he understands, okay, he's got a really good dual threat quarterback in Khalil Wilkins. Maybe, hey, Lev, what month is it right now? It is October. Maybe we get some of that Mr. October magic.
Yep.
Maybe we see that with Khalil Wilkins. I don't think we're going to get 327 yards or whatever Khalil Tate ran against Colorado back in 2017. But I do feel like they're going to have a great game plan around him and his legs. And I think they're going to keep it competitive. But I agree with you. I do think that UCF, man, these guys are due for a win. And I know that are they coming off a bye week, or did they recently have a bye in the last couple of weeks? Or do they have a bye this
Well,
upcoming
they played at Cincinnati last week. And I don't think they've had.
They have not had a bye yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they
have one.
They had a bye in early September, so it's been a minute. Yeah.
Okay. So these guys, they got to figure out a way to get to a bye week with some good mojo, and I think they'll get it done at home. But West Virginia covers.
Yeah, I have UCF. Lev, you kind of touched on so much of it. They're playing good football. It just has not the W just has not come in Big 12 play. I think UCF gets it, and this is where I'm going to zag. I think that they're going to win by more than a touchdown to go ahead and cover that. They're just playing. Like I said, like they are just so due for a game where I think they just let out a lot of frustration, and West Virginia seems like a decent team to go ahead and do that against.
Yeah, I was very tempted to go that way, but I ultimately decided to take, the Mountaineers to at least cover. All right, so 1 p.m. Up in Tempe, Texas Tech, which is now ranked 7th in the country. I think I had them 5th on my ballot this week at ASU. This game is on Fox. Jordan, I'm going to turn things over to you. I didn't see a single minute of the ASU Utah game because we had our own game going on. I don't think I missed very much, but tell us what happened and what's going on with the Sun Devils.
You did not miss a whole lot on the ASU side. So Jeff Sims got the start last week. Sam Levitt was in a walking boot with an undisclosed injury. Rainy conditions. We talked about Rice Eccles, especially at night. That's a very tough place to play. But was probably most concerning about ASU's effort was the defense. We've talked so much about Brian Ward being a wizard all year and shutting down or at least slowing down these really good offenses. And they got super out physical to the tune. Like we haven't seen that in 2 years for ASU. I actually ran some numbers. They lost by 32 points in their 3 losses last year, which included a overtime loss to Texas. It was a combined 26 points. So they have not got the doors blown off. At least in this kind of like current group, will kind of take out year 1 of Kenny Dillingham. But like with this group that's been here, they've played them, every team really tough. They've played them very physical, and they got pushed around on both sides of the ball. And like Jeff Sims, like he played fine. He didn't play incredible, but like you could have had any quarterback back there and they weren't going to keep pace with what Utah was doing. Devin Dampier only threw for about 100 yards, but rushed for 120 yards and 3 scores in 3 quarters. So Utah just kind of flexed their muscle. Bad news coming out of that game. Ben Coleman is out for the year. That's their most experienced offensive lineman. He's a 7th-year player for them. And then it got announced this morning that running back Kyson Brown is out for the foreseeable future. And Kanye Udo was sick. So behind Raleek Brown in that backfield, there's not a ton of depth. But Kenny Dillingham did say this morning he feels good about where Sam Levitt is at. We'll have to see if he plays or not, or if it's Jeff Sims coming in to they're coming off a very physical game, and now they're playing one of the most physical teams in the entire country.
So the spread in this game, when I sent the picks to you guys, is 9.5. At one point in the week was 12.5. Like right this second, as we're recording, it's 7.5, but we are going with 9.5. And why is it so big? Well, Texas Tech is just the best at everything in this conference. They are first in the league in total offense and total defense. Their yardage differential with their opponents is plus 300 yards per game. In Big 12 play, it's plus 240 yards per game. I mean, they are just steamrolling people. Baron Morton did get banged up last week. Will Hammond came in. He actually did not play well against Kansas. He was only 7 of 16 for 42 yards and an interception. So a moderate concern, to be sure. But they, of course, had Cameron Dickey running the ball for 263 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he just looked like a blur out there. They pressured Jalen Daniels 51.1% of the time, despite blitzing only 24.4% of the time. If you look at like the grades of opposing offensive lines against Texas Tech, it's like their worst grade of the season every single time. And you mentioned the ASU defense, no sacks. Devin Dampier is very hard to sack, but still no sacks for the team that I think had the most coming into the week, and allowed 276 rushing yards. So I'm sure that they're going to bounce back, and Kenny's going to push all the motivational buttons this week. But I've been picking against Texas Tech, and it seems like a fool's errand to keep doing so. So I'm going to lay that. I'm going to lay the 9.5 points. Texas Tech is just better than everybody else in this league. They're going to win this game, and they're going to win it fairly comfortably.
Shows you what money can buy in this current era of college football. I mean, Texas Tech, they steamrolled Utah 34-10. They went on the road and beat the Cougars 35-11. That's the only loss for Houston this year. And then they just beat Kansas 42-17. My only concern with Texas Tech was the health of their linebacker, Jacob Rodriguez, going into last week. And then he ended up with 14 tackles. Even as a guy that was a questionable player and was dealing with some health issues. So this is a really tough team. They are just so dominant. So until proven otherwise, it would be ill-advised for me to pick against Texas Tech. So Red Raiders cover every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
I'm going to pick Texas Tech straight up. Just too many questions surrounding ASU and where they're at. However, I think ASU does cover. So I'm going to take ASU against the spread. There was a lot of talk of, hey, it was one game where they got out physical compared to the 17 that they've played where that's never been the case. I think they bounce back in that regard. It feels very ASU that, like, as maybe some people are jumping off the bandwagon or looking for cracks in the team and that sort of thing, that they put out a really good effort, but it just feels like Texas Tech is too much right now. So they'll win it, but I think ASU keeps it within 10.
By the way, have you guys seen Texas Tech's home environment, like their stadium and what they do at the end of games with like the fireworks and the drone show and all that? Lev, have you seen that?
I have not. No, the only thing I've heard about with them is the tortilla controversy, but is it good stuff?
How they celebrate wins, and it's just like, yeah, it looks like millionaires are just having fun with the football program right now.
I mean, it's kind of true, right? Isn't that what's happening?
Yeah.
Well, maybe billionaires, but
billionaires. Yes, actually, billionaires having fun with a college football program. It's almost like, Jordan, did you ever play Roller Coaster Tycoon or Zoo Tycoon?
Oh, yeah.
And you know how like crazy you'd make the amusement park or the zoos? That's what we're seeing right now with these billionaires in Texas Tech. It's just like their own little playhouse. So
yeah.
But anyway.
So why doesn't one of the teams in our next game have that oil money, one wonders? That's Oklahoma State. Their program is completely fallen apart. Mike Gundy no longer the coach. They have not been competitive at all. They are hosting Cincinnati on ESPN2. This game starts at 5:00. Cincinnati is favored by 21.5 points at Oklahoma State. Crazy, right? Like, how can this be? Like, this makes no sense until you look at Oklahoma State being last in the league in total offense, total defense, scoring defense, passing defense, red zone defense. I could go on and on and on. Cincinnati has not played well, I'd say, since the end of the first half of that Iowa State game. They barely hung on against the Cyclones. They didn't play that great against UCF, as mentioned. And you know what, guys? I don't care. I don't care what the number is. I've been burned by Oklahoma State each of the last 2 weeks. I just can't do it anymore. Give me Cincinnati. Lay the 21.5.
So is it 21.5 or 20.5?
Is it either way? It's 21.5.
Oh, it's 21.5. Ooh, man.
They're trying to tempt you, Justin.
I'm going to take Cincinnati to win, obviously. But, man, if it's 21.5, I could see them totally just running the ball the entire game, and they win by 21 right on the nose, and Oklahoma State barely covers. So I'll go Cincinnati to win, but Oklahoma State to cover.
I think you're muted, Jordy.
Oh, yeah, Jordy, you're muted. Oh. There we go. No? Okay.
Should we call a timeout here, Justin? See if we can get Jordy back.
Hold on, timeout. And
timeout. We got our technical difficulties
well
out here, right?
Where were we?
We were We were handing it over to Jordan to give his pick on the Cincinnati-Oklahoma State game.
Yeah. So I'm going to take Cincinnati straight up. That's a big number. And so I'm going to take Oklahoma State against the spread there. I just feel like Cincinnati, their second half, this might be a little bit of a look ahead. They have Baylor the following week, then Utah, Arizona, BYU, TCU to round out the year. So I have a feeling like this could just be one where there's a little bit of a lull. And we've seen that lull a couple times with Cincinnati, and they've still gotten the W. But, over 3 touchdowns is a pretty big ask. So I will take Oklahoma State against the spread.
I totally understand why both of you guys are doing that. I just can't. Okay. This next game, also at 5:00, easily the game of the week in the Big 12, the Holy War, Utah at BYU. This game is on Fox. Interestingly enough, even though Utah is 5-1 and BYU is 6-0, Utah's ranked 23rd, BYU is 15th. The game is in Provo. It is the Utes who are favored by 3.5 points. You will remember last year that BYU won this game by a point in comeback fashion with a very controversial defensive holding penalty. Mark Harlan, the Utah athletic director, lost his mind after that game. He was so mad. This is also kind of the Spider-Man.gif game for sure. Like Utah and BYU, they're second and third in the league in scoring. They're second and third in the league in scoring defense. They're both top 5 in total offense and total defense. They're the top 2 rushing teams in the league. They both have quarterbacks who can run. What is the difference between the two? Why is Utah favored? Why might they win this game? Could be their red zone offense, which we know was a huge factor in the BYU Arizona game. Utah has scored touchdowns in 86.2% of their red zone trips. That's like double what both Arizona and ASU have done this year. They are very efficient when they get there. So I think that is definitely a factor. They're also first and third down offense, and I'm sure those two things are not a coincidence. 60% of their third downs. When a weird spread like this happens, I think you got to trust Vegas. They must know something. Like, why is the spread this way? They must think Utah's better. So I'm also going to go with Utah in this one. I'm going to lay the 3.5 points. Give me the Utes.
This is one of those games where it determines what color ties you see at church this weekend. It's either blue or it's going to be red. Just, talking from people who have grown up in the Salt Lake City area, like, this is no joke. Utah and BYU, one of the best rivalries you will see in the Big 12, especially when it comes to football. And so when these two teams are good and when they're both ranked, it's really good for the Big 12 brand. So I'm really excited for this game. However, I am, interested in seeing how is BYU's passing attack going to bounce back, because, if you really look in that game against Arizona, they really hunkered down when the going got tough, and they're like, all right, we're just going to run the ball because Arizona cannot stop this. The run game with LJ Martin and Bear Bachmeier, it's legit. But, can Bear Bachmeier, connect with Parker Kingston and some of these other guys, and can they, bounce back in the passing game? I don't think so, because Utah has one of the best passing defenses in the Big 12. This is a really good defense. So I'm going to go with Utah to win this game, and I got them winning by a touchdown, and which should be a fun one in Provo.
Yeah, I look at the quarterbacks in this situation. Again, a young quarterback in Bear Bachmeier, who has played very well, but you saw Arizona able to exploit, maybe some of that inexperience a few times throughout the game on Saturday. And I think Utah's going to draw up something that, might have him have a couple freshman moments. And Devin Dampier is just playing at such a high level. Lev, like you said, it was crazy to see just how demoralizing it could be on a drive where it's like a 3rd and 6, and Utah would just figure out a way to convert and just extend the drive. And it felt just kind of like death by 1,000 cuts of just like, it just adds up throughout a game. So if they're able to do that, I think they're able to take care of business. So I'm going to lay the points and take Utah.
You guys want to hear a scary story? It's October,
Always.
Right? It's spooky season.
Sure. Yeah.
So I went to go check out the BYU tailgate before the Arizona game. and I bought a cougar tail. I was supposed to buy one last year in Provo, but I didn't get a chance to buy one. And I saw at their tailgate, they were selling cougar tails. And for those that don't know what a cougar tail is, it's like a maple long john donut, and it's a long one. And they put it in a box, and it's really good. And, during the rain delay, I had a cup of coffee that I got from the third floor because for some reason the Arizona press box did not have coffee available. So I went down to the third floor, got some coffee, and had a little bit of my cougar tail. And it was exactly what I needed in that moment to feel energized for what was going to be a very long night. But this is where it gets scary. I had a little bit of it. I left the box in the Arizona Stadium press box. So I spent that money on a cougar tail, and majority of it was in a box. So
Brett Gleason is enjoying 7/8 of a cougar tail.
Yes. So, yeah.
What a
Anyways,
bummer. That's not a scary story. That's a sad story.
I know. I realized it as soon as I got my car, too. I was like, I'm going to have – dang it. I was excited to have that cougar tail.
I thought this story was going to end with like Justin in the bathroom, like
no
having some sort of stomach problems from eating the cougar tail.
No.
So that would have been scarier.
Yeah, I was expecting like a spider was on your cougar tail or like a baby scorpion or something.
No, just left it in the press box. Didn't realize until I got in my car. Spooky story. Anyways.
Okay, that leaves one more game. That would be Arizona against Houston. This game is at 9 a.m. Arizona time, 11 a.m. if you happen to be going to the game at Houston. This game opened with this game's on Fox Sports 1, by the way. This game opened with Houston as the favorite by 2.5. Then Houston was favored by 1.5. Now Arizona's favored by 1.5. The last time we saw this kind of line movement was the Kansas State game. I don't know what to make of that. Like maybe Vegas still hasn't figured out what Arizona's all about. Maybe some big money came in on the Arizona side of things. When you look at their road record, Brent Brennan's road record, this is a surprising point spread. Like it doesn't take any of that into account. So, maybe this is, a new and improved, truly new and improved Arizona Wildcats bunch. Houston is top 6 in the league in most defensive categories. Very sound defensive team. They are tied for first with BYU in red zone defense, which is not a good sign for Arizona, which has really struggled in the red zone. They are next to last in touchdown percentage in the red zone. Houston has a really good kicker named Ethan Sanchez, who's made 14 of 16 field goals, 7 of 8 from 40 to 49 yards. So if this game is a low scoring field goal type of game, probably advantage Houston. The biggest weakness that the Cougars have is their pass protection.
Yeah.
Their offensive line. It's the third worst graded pass blocking unit in all of college football, according to Pro Football Focus. Take those grades with a grain of salt, if you will, but that has been a struggle for them. Connor Wigman, or Wigman, I've heard many different pronunciations. His nickname is Wiggy, so maybe Wigman is the way to go. He's been pressured 41.8% of the time when he drops back. To put that in a little bit of perspective, Noah Fafita has only been pressured 30.3% of the time. So if there's a weakness to exploit for Houston, that's it. This is such an important game for Arizona. I think they are emotionally and psychologically mature enough to handle this situation. I think a lot of the numbers say Houston, but my gut says the Wildcats pull it off. So I'm going to lay the 1.5. I'm going to say Arizona wins and they go into their bye with a 5-2 record.
See, the thing about Houston is that they have a really good secondary. Their cornerbacks, those guys are ball hawks. And so, it's going to be kind of similar to Iowa State, kind of similar to BYU, where don't expect a lot of yak. Those cornerbacks, those safeties, they are going to bring you down. And so I feel like this is an important game for the rushing attack. And going up against Houston, why not get the Texas boys going? Kedrick Reesano, who had a nice touchdown run last week, could have had 2, but, the one in overtime got called back. Now that he's healthy and back in the fold, maybe that's going to be an added punch for Arizona and give them an extra spark. And then Ismail Mahdi, we've seen him and what he's capable of over the course of the season. So I think the two running backs for Arizona, Ismail Mahdi and Kedrick Reesano, those are going to be the X factors for Arizona in this game. And I think, on the road, getting those offensive linemen to get downhill and do some run blocking and really set the tone for this game, I think is so key. And then, for, Arizona on the defensive side of the ball, I talk about Houston and how great their secondary is. Well, Arizona has arguably the best secondary in the Big 12 right now, and they're going to be going up against some really tough Houston wide receivers. I mean, those guys are big, they're physical, they're fast. Like, this is going to be a really tough challenge for Arizona. And then Connor Wegman, or Wiggy, whatever we're calling him, this was a player who was a 5-star quarterback, right? One of the top guys coming out of school. Kind of reminds me like back in the day when Arizona played against Houston, and I think Kyle Allen was their quarterback, and he was good, but he was a former highly touted recruit and is a really good quarterback. And Connor Wegman is, in that category. Willie Fritz and company, they did a really good job in the transfer portal this year, and they're giving me somewhat of like the vibe of like BYU or ASU last year, where no one thought anything of them going into this year. And now look at them. They're 5-1 at the halfway point of the year, and their only losses to the best team in the country. Here's why I'm really hesitant to pick Arizona. 27.2. What is that number? Well, that's the average margin of defeat in games under Brent Brennan outside of the Utah game. So excluding their win at Utah, if we look at their road losses against, Kansas State last year, and then the road loss to Iowa State, and then this year and all the other games last year, 27.2 average margin of defeat. That's a number that doesn't make me feel confident in Arizona. But you know what? A majority of those games were from last year's team. This ain't last year's team. To me, this year's team is totally different. This coaching staff was very encouraged by the spirit in which they showed after losing such a tough game to BYU. So, I'm going to go with Arizona to win this game. The fact that it switched like that, Vegas knows something. Arizona doesn't become favored like that unless Vegas knows something. So Arizona's favored. I'm going to go with the Wildcats to win, and I'm going to go with Arizona 24, Houston 20.
I think there's going to be multiple key touchdowns, and whether that leads to a short field or even a defensive score for U of A. I think that with losses like they had last week, it can either fracture a team and be a total gut punch, or it can be motivation. And the whole red line mentality has been, we're going to go pedal to the metal. We are going to go all out. And it felt like at certain times late in the game, the foot was off the gas just ever so slightly, and BYU was able to take advantage. I think this is a team.
It wasn't red line, Jordan.
What?
They weren't redlining.
No, they were not. I think that they are going to learn from that and apply that here for the future. I think Houston's a very good team. I think it's going to be a low scoring affair. But Jay, like you said, with the run game, I think even Noah Fafita maybe has a rushing score, and he's able to make some plays with his feet. So I'm going to take Arizona. I'm going to lay the points. So against the spread and straight up, that the Wildcats get a W.
Yeah, this would be a narrative shifter, to be sure, if they pull this off, because they haven't been very impressive on the road. They haven't responded in situations like this, coming off the tough loss, playing in the morning, but they do practice in the morning, so that shouldn't be an issue. One other note on Connor Wigman, he will rush the ball. He has 197 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. And if you watched, how the game played out last week, if you're Houston, you're like, we got to get our quarterback involved in the run game, right? Because it worked time and time again for the Cougars of BYU. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. This is going to take a really sort of like uncharacteristic effort, I guess, in a way, for the Wildcats, just to do a lot of the things that to avoid doing a lot of the traps that they've fallen into in the past in these exact situations, turning the ball over, getting off to a bad start, like just allowing the game to slip away. I like the mental toughness and fortitude that they showed last week, and that's probably the main reason that I'm going to go with them like you guys are.
On a scale of 1 to Derek King, Lev, how mobile is Connor Wegman?
Oh, that's a good question. Like more than you would think, like
I'll never forget
talked
that
about him
game against
being, being one of the top quarterbacks coming out. He was, I think, according to some, the number one quarterback.
Yeah,
in his class, like a 5-star. Kyle Allen is a great comp. It was kind of the same thing. And Connor Wigman started his career at Texas A&M, right? He transferred. He's been banged up a little bit. Like when they got him, like I think that was the signal that this might be a different Houston team. Because when they went to Arizona last year, and I think the final score was 27-3. Like Zion Chris was just not a fully formed, well-rounded QB who could beat you any other way than with his athleticism. And Arizona really took advantage of that. It's not going to be the case with Connor Wegman. So they got to really take advantage of Houston's weakness, get into the backfield, make life miserable for Connor. Don't let him escape from the pocket. Good practice last week, right? Against a similarly built mobile quarterback. So this is another big test for Danny Gonzalez, who's passed most of them so far this season as Arizona's defensive coordinator.
And with Houston, like even next year, I think Houston fans should be very excited. This quarterback recruit they have coming in, I saw him at Elite 11, Keyshawn Henderson, I think is his name. The real deal. So in terms of like the talent they've been bringing in at that position and just revamping a roster that didn't have a ton the past couple of years, like Houston's in a very interesting spot over these next couple of years.
I wonder if the narrative here in the next couple of years is like the boom in Texas schools coming up in this new era of college football. Right, we're seeing it with Texas Tech this year with Cody Campbell. I mean, TCU, would I imagine, is a rising program with some deep pockets, and now Houston's getting some big recruits. I don't know, maybe Texas is going to be the center of college football here in a little bit. All right,
you need to find that benefactor, and they exist. There are a U of A alums who have that kind of money. It's just a matter of building those relationships and getting them to buy into what you're trying to do.
Come on, Artie, let's make it happen. All right, that is it for the Wildcast podcast. Jordy, real quick, what's the schedule like this weekend for you?
I will be with the Sun Devils in Tempe as they host Texas Tech. So going to be you got breakfast ball going. I'm going to have brunch ball going, with these early kickoffs. So going to be definitely going to be interesting. I can see this game going 30 different directions of all the potential outcomes.
It's got to be
very surprised. Yeah, very surprised that game isn't a night game. Like
especially when it got scheduled, it was like
game.
Both teams were. I wonder if it was a potential big noon type thing that they were maybe thinking, and then the wheels kind of fell off.
Maybe it's baseball. Look at the
Saturday.
Could
be. Oh yeah.
Brewers Dodgers TBD game 5 if necessary, but that's on TNT though, or TBS. So I don't know. Good question, but advantage Sun Devils playing in the. I don't know. It's going to be kind of nice out, right? Like we're past.
It should be. It's also Hall of Fame weekend, so the 1975 team, arguably the best team in program history, will be there, and Dallas Escobedo and a bunch of people getting inducted. So I know there's a lot of buzz. They're gonna be wearing the sunburst helmets from back in the day. So that could be a really good thing or a kiss of death, because there have been some like Hall of Fame weekends where they wear sick jerseys and then they lose to like Washington State by 30. Like I have a distinct memory of that, of being like, these are the best uniforms that they can never play in again because they lost 38-7 to Jaden DeLora and Washington State.
Yeah. So I felt about U of A with all reds.
Yeah.
It's like every time they wear all red, it's just not good for them. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Wildcast. Jordan Hamm from Sports 360 AZ. We appreciate you for joining us. Check out all of his work at sports360az.com and find all of our coverage of the Arizona Wildcats football program on Tucson.com and the Wildcaster app. Arizona taking on Houston this Saturday, 9 a.m. on FS1. We'll see y'all next week.